So we have the modulus or the magnitude response given like this, and the angle is given like this. The phase response is given like this. I think all this is clear. So capital theta, capital phi, they are angle of the kth zero, the real axis, and angle of the kth pole, the real axis. I hope you have noted this down. And then we started looking at what is the role, what is the impact when of a single pole. When I introduce a single pole in the system function h of z, suppose I have a transfer function h of z, and I introduce a single pole, then what is the impact? And similarly, the impact on the magnitude response and impact on the phase response. And similarly, what if I introduce a zero, and the poles have to be all inside the unit circle, because we're talking about a filter or an LTI system which is stable, but a zero can be outside the unit circle also. So we will have two cases for the zero. The zero can be inside the unit circle as well as outside the unit circle. And last class I had shown you this diagram. Sorry, this is the summary. So if you want, you can just go through it before I show you the diagram. In the last class, we've seen the diagram where we wanted to analyze the significance of introducing a pole inside the unit circle. What does it do to the magnitude response, mod of Hg omega, and what will it do to the phase angle of Hg omega? Okay. Okay, I think this is done. So we were looking at this particular diagram. So we had this vector rotating on the unit circle, and we had a pole which was having an angle of phi k with respect to the real axis. This is the real part, real axis. This is the imaginary axis. So this is a rotated z plane. So we wanted to analyze the impact of the introduction of this single pole on the magnitude response and the phase response. So we had discussed about how to write the magnitude response. There is only one pole. So this particular pole is written as r small rk into e to the power j phi k. So the angle that it makes with the real axis is phi k. This is the angle, phi k. And because we're talking about a single pole, so it is just phi 1. Okay. And here the angle of this vector z, which is connecting origin to the point on the unit circle, is omega. Or here it is written as omega k, which is omega. So if we use the formula for calculating the magnitude response, then we see that it is just a constant divided by the distance from the pole to the point on the unit circle. So this is the vector pkz. So if you see here, this is the vector pkz. So the modulus of Hg omega is equal to some kappa divided by pkz vector. So that is equal to kappa divided by capital Rk, because your pkz vector was denoted as capital Rk e to the power j capital phi k. You see here. Okay, is this clear? So we are only talking about a single pole. In the denominator, there is only one pole, and numerator doesn't have any zeros. So in the denominator, there is only one pole. Numerator doesn't have any zeros. We are just a constant. That d0 is written as kappa here. Okay. So the exact value of constant kappa is the line segment PKZ takes its minimum value 1 minus RK at omega equal to 5K. So I was explaining that if this length is RK, then PKZ will reduce. So PKZ, when PK is here and Z is here, that distance is small 1 minus RK. This distance is RK. Okay. The pole is small RK into e to the power j 5k. OPK is written as small RK into e to the power j small 5k. Okay. So now when Z goes here, OZ is equal to 1, OPK is equal to R, small RK. So this distance PKZ is equal to 1 minus RK. That is the line segment PKZ takes its minimum value 1 minus RK at omega equal to 5k. And its maximum value 1 plus RK at omega equal to 5k plus 5. So we saw that when Z goes from here to here, then the distance of PKZ from here to here will be 1 plus RK. So that is the idea here. So 1 plus RK at omega equal to 5k plus 5. So the ratio of the maximum value of the magnitude response to the minimum value of the magnitude response is 1 plus RK by 1 minus RK. Now this is a function of RK. That is, where is the location of this pole with respect to this line. So this pole can be located on anywhere along this line inside the unit circle. Okay. So it cannot go beyond this because then the filter will become unstable. So anything on this line is acceptable. So where is RK? Is it closer to the origin or closer to the unit circle? So this factor, gain, the dynamic range of the magnitude response is determined, is a function of RK. So the closer RK is to the unit circle, this ratio will be the larger. Okay. If RK is closer to the unit circle, this guy will become smaller and smaller. So this factor will become larger and larger. That is the idea. So mod HE of j omega decreases as omega goes from 5k to 5k plus 5 and then progressively increases as omega moves closer to 5k. That means the pole is causing the magnitude response to increase in the neighborhood of 5k. So as omega comes closer to 5k, that is, as this rotating vector on the unit circle, it comes closer to 5k, when omega is equal to 5k, the vector pkz has the smallest distance, so kappa by pkz is maximum. So kappa by pkz becomes maximum, and therefore the gain shoots up, and the gain will shoot up towards infinity because the range of the dynamic range is a function of RK, and if RK goes close to the unit circle, then the maximum value to the minimum value ratio will be infinite. Okay. So we see that the gain of the filter or the magnitude response of the filter, it increases as the rotating vector capital Z comes close to the pole. So if you plot mod of HE omega versus omega, then omega is the angle that capital Z is making with respect to the x-axis. So as you keep changing omega on the x-axis, so you have mod of HE omega on the y-axis and HE and omega on the x-axis. As you plot that magnitude response, so as omega comes close to 5k, the mod of Hg omega will start to shoot up. It will start to increase in value. So the role of the pole, the way the behavior of the magnitude response changes due to a pole is that the pole causes the magnitude response to increase around its neighborhood. How does it increase? Does it increase sharply? Or does it increase? Does it take a maximum value and in the neighborhood it falls off gradually? Or does it take a high value and then in the neighborhood it falls sharply? What is the nature of that behavior? That is dependent on the location of the pole along this particular line. Where is the pole along this line? Is it closer to the origin or closer to the unit circle? So if it is closer to the unit circle, then this guy will tend to 0 because RK will tend towards 1. So if RK will tend towards 1, then the modulus of Heg omega will shoot very high. In fact, the ratio of the maximum magnitude to the minimum magnitude will tend towards infinity. So that will happen, and therefore the maximum gain that is at h of phi k will go to infinity as the pole moves on the unit circle, if the pole is located on the unit circle. However, we cannot have a pole on the unit circle because causal LTI systems with poles on or outside the unit circle are unstable. So we are assuming that our LTI system is causal and it is stable, so we cannot have this situation, and therefore we would like to stick to poles inside the unit circle. And only thing is that it can vary on the dotted line, and can it be closer to the origin or can it be closer to the pole? So I think this is clear. The significance of a pole on the behavior of the magnitude response. Is this clear now? This is what we had covered in the last class. Yeah. Those of you who would like to take notes, I can keep the slide for 2 minutes. This is the line that you should read. The length dkz increases progressively as omega increases from phi k to phi k plus pi, and then decreases continuously until omega approaches the value phi. And again this line. So this is clear, everyone?
Yes.
So let us look at the analysis of the phase response. So the formula for the phase response is given like this. This is the general formula. So here you have n minus m zeros. Again here, these are like at the origin. Now here you see This is the angle made by the zeros. This is the angle made by the poles. So you have, this is the phase response. So because we have only one um, pole, so we will keep n minus m will become equal to 1. So if you have here only one pole, so there are no zeros. So the number of poles is 1, m is equal to 0. So you will have omega into 1 minus 5k omega. That is the term here. You are getting one term from here, no terms from here, zero contribution from here. So this is the angle. Angle of B naught is just a constant. Either it is 0 or it is pi. So angles of the triangle OPKZ. If you look at this diagram and you look at this triangle OPKZ. So here you see, we already saw that this Z vector was at an angle of omega and this vector P was at an angle of pi k. So PK was at an angle of pi k. So the angles of the triangle OPKZ sum to pi. This triangle, the angles will sum to pi. So we have one angle here, which is the angle between the vector OZ and PKZ, which is defined as alpha k, that is the extra thing here. Now PK is making an angle capital phi k with respect to the x-axis, that is given here. And PK is making an angle small phi k with respect to the real axis. This pole is making a small angle phi k with respect to the real axis, whereas this line, this vector PKZ is making an angle phi k with respect to the horizontal axis. So we see that this part of the angle is equal to this angle because this is a parallel line to this axis. So these two angles will be alternating angles and therefore they are equal. So this angle is equal to pi minus pi k because this angle is equal to pi minus pi k. If we make that like inference, then we can write out the sum of the angles inside OPKZ triangle. All of you are able to see my slide clearly? Can you see my slide clearly?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So you can now write this sum of the angles inside this triangle equal to pi. So alpha k plus pi k minus omega. This angle is pi k minus omega. Omega is here. So this particular angle is pi k minus omega plus capital phi k plus pi minus small phi k. This angle. Okay, whatever is shown with the red arrow is equal to pi. So we cancel our terms and get omega minus capital phi k equal to alpha k. So alpha k here is the angle between PKZ and OZ, and that is turning out to be omega minus phi k. So this is the way to prove it. So we see that the phase response due to a single pole is equal to omega minus phi k omega. That is equal to alpha k. So moving the point Z around the unit circle, as we move the point Z around the unit circle, we see that angle HEJ omega becomes 0 at omega equal to phi k. Suppose this line OZ started to move this side, then the angle alpha k will start to become smaller and smaller. Okay? Because your line will start to appear here, then this will be the angle alpha k. Then slowly the line will start to coincide with OPK. When the line coincides, when OZ coincides with line OPK, the angle alpha k will become 0. Okay. So the phase response will become 0, or alpha k will become 0 when small omega is equal to phi k. When this OZ becomes equal to phi k, when OZ lies on OPK, then the angle of HEJ omega or the phase response becomes 0 and changes signs, and as you move on this side it will change sign. at phi k and omega equal to plus pi plus phi k. So again, the same thing will repeat at omega equal to pi plus phi k. So on this side, pi plus phi k is this line. Rather, it is this line. This line. To extend pi pk along this direction. The same thing will happen when z will go and sit here. It will rotate like this, and again it will come here. So when omega equal to pi plus phi, so omega will go like this up to this. So that will be pi plus phi. All of you can see my cursor, right? So this line will make an angle pi plus phi k. But when omega reaches pi plus phi k, then again there will be phase response will become 0 and then change sign. So this is the impact of the pole on the phase response. If you want to note anything down in this slide, you can hold the slide.
Hello.
Yeah, tell me.
Sir, in this angle h e to j omega, here you have written omega minus pi k. That is only due to the pk pole, right?
Yeah, only due to one pole.
Okay.
Only due to one pole, pk.
Thank you, sir.
So is this clear? Can move? Somebody was asking me something?
No, sir. Okay.
It's okay, na? Fine. So let us now look at what happens when we have complex conjugate poles, or when we have poles on the real axis. Okay. So you can see that I have drawn a curved line with pk written here. Can you see my cursor here? This is a black arrow with pk written here. So it denotes that pk is moving on the real axis. So you can have real poles on the real axis, or you can have complex poles. Okay. So what happens when you have complex conjugate poles? Then how do you think about symmetry properties? You have studied that for real signals there is some symmetry property, that DTFT shows some symmetry property. That means the magnitude response will be an even function of omega and the phase response will be an odd function of omega. So let us try to show that, whether that happens or not geometrically. So we can use this geometrical interpretation to illustrate the symmetry properties of magnitude and phase responses. So in general, if you look at this diagram, in general, mod of Hej omega is kappa by P1 Z1. You can assume that this is Z1 and this is Z2. Okay. So Z1 is located at an angle plus omega to the real axis, and Z2 is located at an angle minus omega from the real axis. So you can assume that there is a pole here and there is a pole here. So there are two poles. And in general, suppose pk is not equal to the complex conjugate of this other pole, then in general, kappa by P1 Z1 is not equal to kappa by P1 Z2. Suppose from here, the P1 Z1 and P1 Z2. These two lines are different. Their lengths are different. So kappa by P1 Z1 and kappa by P1 Z2 are not equal. So in general, mod of He j omega is not equal to mod of He of minus j omega. And similarly, angle of He j omega, which is equal to alpha 1, that is the angle made here between pkz and oz, that is the angle alpha. So alpha 1 is not equal to alpha 2, which is the angle made between these two vectors. And you see my cursor, pkz2 and oz2. This angle is not equal to this angle in general. However, if the pole pk moves on the real axis, suppose there is a movement of the pole on the real axis. So the pole is located here on the real axis, not on the complex plane. So its imaginary value is 0. So it is only a real pole. So if it is a real pole, then the angle it will, or the vector that will join the point e to the power j omega on the unit circle is this vector. This is pkz. And this is oz1. You can call this pkz1 and oz1. So pkz1 is this red arrow. Can you see this red arrow? I'm showing it with my cursor. Can you see? So now you see this angle, this is alpha 1. Similarly, you have pkz2 on this side, second arrow. And oz2 is this vector. Then this will be the angle alpha 2. That means alpha 1 is equal to alpha 2. So this is the bisector of this angle. The real axis is the bisector. So these two angles will be equal. So alpha 1 is equal to alpha 2. And you can say that P1 Z1 is equal to P2 Z2. This vector length and this vector length are equal. Then if you write this expression, kappa by P1 Z1 is equal to kappa of P1 Z2. So therefore, H of E j omega mod is equal to H of E minus j omega mod. So you have proven that for real pole, you are getting this kind of magnitude response, which is an even function of omega, and a phase response, which is an odd response or odd function of omega. So that's what we have now shown. So this is for real poles. Now for complex conjugate poles, also this is valid. So if you see that pk here, this pk is the complex conjugate of this pole. So that's why it is written as pk over bar. So pk star is equal to rk e to the power minus j phi k, minus j phi k, because that is an angle of minus phi k with respect to the x-axis. So this is OPK is given as rk into e to the power minus j phi k. So then, due to the symmetry of poles about the real axis, you can write mod of He j omega is equal to kappa by P1z and into P2z. So if you think about this, then there are two poles in the system function. So the magnitude of the frequency response will be written as kappa divided by P1z into P2z. So there are two poles. So P1z into P2z. That is equal to kappa divided by P1 Z bar into P2 Z bar. So this length and this length are the same as this length and this length. So again you see that the modulus of the frequency response is an even function of omega. So with complex conjugate poles and for real poles, we have shown that the symmetry properties will hold. Is this fine? Okay, shall I move? Okay. So now, due to these two complex poles, you will see that you will get two magnitude responses, and because of the pole, you will have a peak. So let us consider an example where we are looking at the shape of magnitude and phase responses generated by single and complex conjugate poles at pk equal to 0.9 into e to the power plus minus j pi by 3. So if it is 0.9 into e to the power plus j pi by 3, then this is the magnitude response. Can you see my cursor? All of you can see my cursor, right?
Yes, yes.
This dotted curve is the magnitude response for 0.9 into e to the power plus j pi by 3. So the peak is occurring at pi by 3 here. Okay? You just drop a vertical line on the x-axis, you cut at pi by 3. And you see the peak is falling off sharply in this neighborhood. Okay? That is because of this guy, 0.9. If it was 0.5 into e to the power j plus pi by 3, then this curve will be more broad. Okay, it will be something like this. It will peak, but it will fall off gradually from the peak. But right now, because this pole is closer to the unit circle, 0.9, so it is falling off very sharply. So does it remind you of some filter that you have studied in analog circuit theory? UG students, does it remind you of any filter?
Band stop.
Which one? Band stop. What about your RLC filter? What was that circuit which you studied? Resonant circuit, right? Do you remember Q factor?
Yes, sir.
So you start to think that you have now designed a digital equivalent of that circuit. Okay. So we'll move to that, we'll look at those things. But just trying to give you an analogy. So this is the magnitude response for PK. Now for the conjugate, when you have 0.9 into e to the power minus j pi by 3, then this will be the magnitude response. And if you sum both of them, then this will be the total magnitude response. Again, it is an even function of omega. So the phase response, let us look at the phase response. the phase response will go to 0 at omega equal to phi k. This is what we had studied here. Angle hg omega becomes 0 and changes sign at omega equal to phi k and again at pi plus phi k. So, you see here, this particular angle is corresponding to pk and it is going to 0 at plus pi by 3 at omega equal to phi k. This is rk into e to the power plus minus j phi k, small phi k. Small phi k is equal to pi by 3. So this is your phase response. It will go to 0 here and then again pi plus pi by 3. Somewhere here. It will again go to 0. So this is your phase response for 0.9 into e to the power j plus pi by 3. This is the phase response for e to the power 0.9 e to the power minus j pi by 3. So here you see it is going to 0. Minus pi by 3, it will again go to 0 at minus pi by 3. Here. So total will come out like this. So this is an odd function of frequency. We have magnitude responses with even symmetry and phase responses with odd symmetry. This is our idea of what happens when you have a pole in a system function. So what happens when you have 0? So 0 means your h of z is going, the magnitude of h of z is going to 0 at that particular point. So the gain will be suppressed by a 0. So suppose the pole in our earlier figure is replaced by a 0 zk at qk into e to the power j small theta k, and the magnitude response at a given frequency omega is given by kappa into zkz. It's equal to kappa into q. Q omega is proportional to the length of zkz. The length of zkz. So as theta k goes close to omega, your zkz will become how much? As this angle changes, as omega changes, and comes close to theta k, what will happen to zk, the vector?
Decrease.
It will go to 0. So we can see that mod of hg omega will dip sharply at omega equal to theta k and increases as point z moves away from z. So the size and sharpness of the dip will increase as the 0 approaches the unit circle. So as this particular 0, it approaches the unit circle, then the variation will be more and more sharp. So the minimum gain is mod of h of e to the power j theta k equal to 0 when the 0 falls on the unit circle. Otherwise, it will be a small value that is equal to zkz. So even if omega is equal to theta k, zkz will be this vector here to here. If zk is on the unit circle, then zkz is equal to 0. I hope you understand. If omega is equal to theta k, then also zkz is this vector. Isn't it? Your OZ will lie here and zkz will be this vector. If zk is on the unit circle, that means the 0 is on the unit circle, then you will get zkz is equal to 0. So mod of h j theta k when theta k is equal to omega is equal to 0. So the system fully suppresses sinusoidal components with frequency omega equal to theta k when the 0 is on the unit circle. So zeros have the opposite effect of poles. So you can similarly show, as I had shown for that pole, you can similarly show that beta k is equal to minus omega plus theta k omega. This you can calculate yourself. You can do this and prove to yourself that beta k is equal to minus omega plus theta k omega from this diagram. Theta k omega is this guy. So this angle beta k between OZ and ZKZ is the phase response due to the zero. The magnitude response we saw, it was equal to ZKZ, vector from here to here, and it was proportional to ZKZ. And angle, the phase response beta k is equal to theta k minus omega, capital theta k omega minus omega. This you can prove yourself. Okay, you just extend this line, so you will get this angle as theta k, and then you can start manipulating and get from this triangle. Equate all the angles of this triangle to 180 degrees angle. And you try to prove that this is true. Okay. So the modulus of HEJ omega is enhanced by a pole and suppressed by a zero. That is the conclusion that we have now reached. Is this clear to everyone? Oh, there are hardly 40 students in the class. That means only 1/3 of the class is there today. Okay. So shall I go ahead? So this is a zero inside the unit circle. Now a zero can go outside the unit circle also. There is no restriction on the stability of a filter if the zero exceeds the unit circle. The filter will still remain stable. So zeros outside the unit circle. So although the poles of a causal and stable system should be inside the unit circle, their zeros can be anywhere in the Z plane. So moving a zero outside the unit circle without changing its angle has an interesting effect on its phase response. So something like this. So you have a zero here, and you are trying to analyze what happens when you move this zero outside the unit circle. So one zero is outside the unit circle. 1 0 is inside the unit circle. So here you have Z in and here you have Z out. So this is 0 inside the unit circle, this is 0 outside the unit circle. And these are 2 points on the unit circle at plus omega and minus omega. And let us think about what happens to the phase response as you move this 0 outside the unit circle. So the phase response of the 0 inside the unit circle is equal to theta in omega minus omega from this theta in omega minus omega. Okay. So if you look at this alpha in omega is this angle. This is equal to theta n omega minus omega. Isn't it? This angle is equal to this angle plus this angle. So this angle is equal to theta n omega minus omega. Correct? Look at this triangle. So we have alpha in omega equal to theta in omega minus omega. So it continuously changes sign at omega equal to 0. So it is a continuous variable of omega, and it will change sign at omega equal to 0. So in contrast, for example, at omega equal to 0, this line will start to come closer here, and this guy will start to connect from here to here. Okay, so your alpha in will start going towards 0. So it changes sign at omega equal to 0. When omega goes to this side, then the alpha angle will become different. Okay. It changes sign at alpha at omega equal to 0. So the angle HEG omega changes sign here at omega equal to 0. So in contrast, for 0 outside the unit circle, the phase response changes from minus pi at omega equal to 0 minus epsilon to plus pi at omega equal to 0 plus epsilon. So this also you can understand. For example, here, so there is a 0 outside and there is a angle that it is making with the vector from O to Z plus, which is plus omega on the from the x-axis. So this is your alpha out angle. This is the phase response for Z out. Phase response for Z in is this angle alpha in. Phase response for Z out is this guy. So at omega equal to, if you vary omega at 0, at omega equal to 0, this angle is equal to plus pi. You see, as you start making this omega go closer to 0, this angle starts to increase. It starts to increase, finally this will become a flat line and this angle will be pi. Isn't it? Alpha out will be pi. So as you decrease omega towards 0, this angle will be plus pi. And similarly for this guy, the alpha out is going to be minus pi at when omega approaches 0. There is a discontinuity there.
So how are we using the sign, like whether if it is plus pi or minus pi?
Sign of the angle is always decided if you are moving anti-clockwise or clockwise. Okay. So here we are moving anti-clockwise, right? So this angle is defined like this from here to here. That is why it is plus pi. So as omega is increasing, this angle is smaller and smaller, right? But as omega goes close to 0, this angle starts to increase and finally becomes plus pi. So at omega equal to 0, it is plus pi. So for a 0 outside the unit circle, phase response changes from minus pi at omega equal to 0 minus epsilon to plus pi at omega 0 plus epsilon. Where epsilon is an arbitrarily small positive number. You can draw those triangles and you can check yourself. So one more thing is that the phase angle for a 0 outside the unit circle is greater than the phase response for the 0 inside the unit circle, because alpha out omega is greater than alpha in omega. That is from here. Alpha in omega is the small angle, alpha out omega is the big angle. So in general, unless Z out is almost here and Z in is almost here, then these two angles will be close to each other. Otherwise, alpha out is greater than alpha in. So zeros outside the unit circle introduce larger phase shifts than zeros inside the unit circle. That is another confusion. So what happens when you have zeros outside the unit circle? That is the idea here. So you can draw these diagrams and you can start to analyze slowly. If you see this side, the angle is minus omega. So if you start to analyze this particular triangle, you will see that this angle will be minus pi. So this will be the angle. You start to think about this diagram and start to draw. Slowly you will understand what is happening.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Sir, you have told at the starting we will discuss about the test, sir.
Yeah, why are you worried? We are not even 1 hour in the class. Don't get worried so much about the test. Okay, so this diagram is done. We have drawn this, then I will move ahead. Let me know when you are finished. Is it over?
Yes, sir.
So let us look at the visual interpretation. What is happening when there is a pole and a zero in the system function? So when you plot h of z mod as a function of z, then the result is a surface whose distance above the z plane is equal to the magnitude of h of z. Okay? So when we plot mod of h e j omega, we are drawing what? We are drawing a profile, or we are cutting that surface by a plane, and we are looking at what is the contour on that plane. That contour that we see is this flow. Okay. Similarly, the phase response. So h of z is actually a surface because z is a plane. So h of z is a point in the 3D space corresponding to each coordinate on the z plane. So the coordinate on the z plane is a two tuple. It is x comma y. So h of z of x comma y. So that is a surface. It is a 3D point. So the zeros are the points where the surface dips down to touch the z plane. That means mod of h of z is equal to 0. So the surface will dip down to touch the z plane. So the mod of h of z, that 3D surface will dip down to touch the z plane when you have zeros on the z plane. And when you have poles for this particular h of z, then those will be the points where the surface looks like a rubber membrane pushed underneath by a thin rod or a pole. So that is why you see, that is why it is called a pole. So those values on the z plane which will cause h of z to increase towards infinity, those are called poles. So the resulting peaks become sharper, thinner and higher as we approach the pole. At the precise location of the pole, h of z is equal to infinity. However, we do not plot this point. Okay. So look at this. So we have a surface, mod of h of z. So this is the surface. And at poles, the surface is starting to increase towards infinity. It will stretch towards infinity. We have just cut these two graphs. So the meaning of poles and zeros are peaks and valleys of the z transform magnitude surface. There are two zeros at z1 equal to 0 and z2 equal to 1. So you can spot that there is a 0 here and there is another 0 at z2 equal to 1. And poles at these places. So the logarithmic plot, if you take log of h of z, then you will see it better. Here you can clearly see the zeros. Here you can't see the zeros so nicely, but here you can start to see the zeros. These are the places where there are zeros. So the logarithmic plot will make the surface look better. It will squeeze the dynamic range. So here the dynamic range is from -1 to 6. Here it is from -1 to 0.4. It is squeezing the dynamic range. This logarithmic function is doing that job, and therefore it is able to show you the zeros along with the poles. This is the visual interpretation of what happens when you have a pole and a zero in a system function. So let us now summarize. So time domain, frequency domain, and Z domain, they are all connected with each other. So we'll now review and put into perspective the three domains used for the analysis of LTI systems. So discrete time signals and systems exist in the time domain, that is, they are functions of the time index n. So any realizable LTI system is defined by this difference equation. So this is the LCCDE, or linear constant coefficient difference equation. All of you must have studied this in signals and systems course. This is called a LCCDE, or a linear constant coefficient difference equation. I think you would have all studied LCCDE when you would have studied Laplace transform. So in that case, it would be a differential equation. So you talk about integral differential equations, right? In Laplace domain, in the S domain, you talk about integral differential equations. In the DSP, in the Z domain, you talk about these LCCDE or difference equations. Fine. Let me move ahead. This is your difference equation. This difference equation, when you take the Z transform, on the left hand side and the right hand side, you can write it out like this, which can be written like this by factorizing. This is a polynomial, you can factorize the polynomials. So you can obtain its factors and take the product of its factors. And the numerator, if you factorize, you will get the zeros. And if you factorize the denominator, you will get the poles. So dk and ak are coming from here, and you will convert them into poles and zeros. So if the system is stable, then you will evaluate h of z at z equal to e to the power j omega. So h of z on the unit circle will yield the frequency response. This is a DTFT of the h of n, the impulse response. So the shape of the impulse response h of n and the magnitude response he of j omega, that is the shape of the pass band and stop bands, are strongly dependent on the location of poles and zeros with respect to the unit circle. So this is the idea. That is what we are looking at in these slides. That is why we studied the impact of poles and zeros. Okay, is this clear? Shall I move ahead? So let us look at this. So this summarizes all the three domains. time domain, you have difference equation and impulse response h of n. If you take the z transform, you get h of z, which is the system function. It contains poles and zeros. And if you talk about stable systems, then you replace with z equal to e to the power j omega, and you get this type. That is the frequency response. When you talk about pass bands and stop bands. So I'll show one more slide today, and then I think I'll stop. Fine. Just look at this. So we design simple filters by pole zero placement. That is the motivation. That is what we are trying to learn. So from the previous discussion, we conclude that there is a strong dependence between the location of poles and zeros and the frequency response of the system. So this relationship can be used to design simple filters with desired frequency response by interactively placing poles and zeros on the Z plane. So this is now up to the programmer, what he wants to do. So you are creating filters in the software or in using mathematics. So that is the design aspect of DSP. So you are choosing the location of the poles and zeros on the Z plane and trying to design filters with a desired frequency response. So the procedure is based on the following guidelines. To suppress the frequency component at omega equal to omega naught, you should place a zero at angle theta equal to omega naught on the unit circle. So if zk z bar vector is equal to 0, then it implies that h is j omega naught is equal to 0. That's what we had seen here in this diagram. If zk z vector is equal to 0, that means if this zk was placed here, then zk z will be equal to 0 when omega is equal to theta. Then he of j omega k or j omega equal to theta k or j omega naught is equal to 0. So this is for suppressing a frequency component. That means you are trying to design what is called a notch filter. To enhance or amplify a frequency component at omega is equal to omega 0, we should place a pole at phi at an angle phi equal to omega naught close but inside the unit circle, because you cannot take the pole outside the unit circle. So as pkz becomes very small, the magnitude response, which is inversely proportional to pkz, will become very large. So this mod of h e j omega naught at omega equal to omega naught will be inversely proportional to the length of the vector pkz. Therefore, it will become large. The magnitude response will become large. So this is our design philosophy. So all of you can make a note of this. Okay. So complex poles or zeros should appear in complex conjugate pairs to assure that the system has real coefficients. So all symmetries will be defined with respect to the real axis. And poles or zeros at the origin do not influence the magnetic response because their distance from any point on the unit circle is unity. So however, a pole or zero at the origin adds or subtracts a linear phase of omega radians to the phase response. So we generally introduce poles and zeros at z equal to 0 to assure that capital N is equal to 1. So you see we had a term omega into n minus m. Okay? You see here. We had this term. So if n is greater than m, then it means that this is a pole at the origin. So pole or zero at the origin adds or subtracts a linear phase of omega radians to the phase response. So this is the summary of design of filters. So we will start with this filter, discrete time resonators. Okay, where we are going to consider two complex conjugate poles. So we are going to consider this guy. This guy. So we are going to build an IIR filter with two complex conjugate poles, and we'll see that it is a digital resonator. So you can design the resonator to resonate at whatever frequency you want by changing the location of the poles. That is the philosophy of DSP. So you can design filters in software or with mathematics, and you can create what is called digital filter. You can choose the frequency at which it will resonate. So we'll study all this, and in the next class I can teach this. So I actually want to postpone all this to after the step, where I will try to finish series of filters. So I will just restrict myself to this much, to only this much as your mid-sem syllabus. I'm not going to teach beyond this. If you want me to teach, then I can teach. There's no issue. We have a class on Thursday, we have a class on Monday. But then again, when you come back after Dussehra, it will be like incomplete. So that's what I'm just thinking. That when you come back after Dussehra, we'll have a continuation when we look at resonators and all. We'll talk about resonators, we'll talk about oscillators, we'll talk about notch filters, we'll talk about comb filters, many things. We'll slowly cover it up. That is my plan. But I don't know, like whatever you prefer, I will do. Otherwise, this will remain hanging. And I cannot complete everything before Dussehra. That is also a problem. So if I start resonators, I will be stuck with notch filters. I cannot complete it. So that's why I would like to postpone the discussion after Dussehra holidays. Is it okay with everyone?
So when will be the exam?
So now let us discuss when you want to have the exam. So the main problem with holding the exam is that I need the ERP. Okay. So why do I need the ERP? Because, see, I need to send out mails to all of you regarding like the timing, the syllabus, or the question paper, the link, everything I need to interact to you using the ERP. I can bypass that. I can use your email IDs and send mails through any other software like Gmail or things like that. But then that is unofficial. Okay, you understand what is official, what is unofficial. If I do something through ERP, that is official. If I send a mail through Gmail, that is an unofficial channel. So somebody can question me that you decided on a particular day for the exam, and you inform the students through an unofficial channel. Somebody can say that I did not receive the mail, you did not send me the mail, and then how would I challenge that day? You understand what is the meaning? What I am trying to imply? If somebody says that I did not receive the Google Meeting link, that is why I did not come to the exam, then how will I counter it? If I send a mail through ERP, then a copy of that mail comes back to me. So I have a hard proof that I have sent my Google link or Google Meeting link to all students in the class. You understand what I'm trying to say? This place is a very funny place, and I've seen a lot of strange things happening, including a student suicide. And the day the student committed suicide, the HOD wanted the attendance in my class. Okay, because there was police sitting in the office of the HOD. I have seen very bad days. So this is a very, very strange place, and all of you are now in your homes. So what is the proof that I have sent the Google Meeting link? If somebody just writes a mail to the HOD or to the dean saying that I did not receive the mail, so I could not appear in the exam, the professor is at fault, I will be in deep trouble. In fact, last time I remember there was a student, I don't know whether the student is still here or not, he just told me that I have appeared in the exam, but the folder is, the PDF file is not there in the Google folder. You understand what he said? He said that I have appeared in the exam, but I could not find this PDF file in the Google folder. Now what should I do? So I had to consult the HOD. I had to take a retest of his midsem and endsem exams. Both his midsem and endsem exams PDF files were missing in the Google folder. After taking so much precaution, after sending mail through ERP, everything, I found that his PDF files are missing. Okay, Mohammad Mohsin Kalim, are you there? Now he has disappeared, huh? Mohammad Mohsin Kalim?
Yes, sir, I'm here.
Yeah. So for students like you, I am making this statement. You understand that explicitly, whatever I am saying?
Yes,
there was
sir.
a student by the name T. Shivakumar. You can contact that guy. I conducted a retest for him, midsem and endsem for statistical signal processing. Okay, I was setting the question up to 3 a.m. in the night because the HOD asked me to take the retest. I could not find this PDF file in the Google folder. Both the midsem and the endsem exam. You call that guy and find out how much trouble I had to take to trace his PDF file. I could not find his file. He was insisting that he has uploaded the file. I could not find the file. And you simply disappeared that day. And you never even sent me a mail that you are absent. I could only find you out by looking at the entire Excel sheet and finding out who is present, who is absent. Okay? So you see how much trouble a faculty goes through to teach something online. Apart from these slides which I am making and I am giving a spoon feeding into your mouths, explaining each angle, explaining each line, each vector, उतना तो हम करते ही करते हैं. उसके बाद भी हम रात के 3 बजे तक बैठ के आपके लिए क्वेश्चन पेपर तैयार करते हैं. You understand what I am trying to say? So if I send a mail that Google Meeting link for the midsem exam over Gmail, somebody will say I did not receive that Gmail. Then what proof I have? Okay. I could not counter that fellow. The HOD told, no, you take the retest. The student will simply write a mail to the dean. He will write a mail to the director. That is the problem that I am facing. And ERP is malfunctioning. Today I could not send you the Google Meeting link through ERP because ERP is malfunctioning. I have called in the morning the guy who is in charge of that server. He could not fix the problem. ERP is malfunctioning. So we take lot of precautions while we do these things. You are not coming to the department, you are not physically there in the department. I don't have a physical answer script with me, which I can count and I can show that these many answer scripts were given to me. There is a huge amount of infrastructure or the manpower that is installed to conduct an exam in an IIT just to avoid these kind of pitfalls. I have gone through the hard way last semester. I know what pain it is to set mid-sem and end-sem exam up to 3 a.m. in the night. I have faced it. And you are writing a mail saying that your laptop was not functioning. Okay? Is that a ground on which I can take a test again? You people are very funny people. And you put faculty in deep trouble because of your silly mistakes. You simply don't appear in the exam and you will force me to do a retest. Is that fair? Is that justice? We are also human beings. We also have families. I don't say anything, okay? I keep my mouth shut. But I am experiencing. This is the problem. Everybody thinks that they have a fantastic internet and I'm conducting a fantastic class. I know that you don't have great internet. You are sitting at home. I also don't have great internet. Sometimes the internet malfunctions. But you are expecting that you will have great classes. Everywhere there is a problem, Baba. What can I do? That is why I was insisting that before ERP goes down, I should conduct the class test. And I'm supposed to do this in this week only. If I do it outside this week, somebody can question me. You people want relaxation. You want a liberal guy. You want a teacher who is very generous. And you will put that generous teacher into trouble. I have faced all the music in the last 10 years. I've been around here. I don't want to be liberal. I'm sounding a little bit crooked today, but the fact is that I should also protect myself. Otherwise, I will be setting a retest for every student who just disappears. If you demanded a retest, if you were writing a physical exam, you should have been in BC Roy. You should have produced a medical certificate from BC Roy. Only on that ground I can give a retest. There is no other ground in the rules of the IIT to give a retest. You people should understand, we are doing these things online with a lot of problems. And we are facing problems every day. Anyway, I don't want to say too much. So I would like to hold the exam on Thursday in the time when my class is, that is from 10 to 11. I would like to do that.
Okay, sir.
Sir,
Yes, but I don't know, I cannot send the mail through ERP. You are saying that like I'm talking so much about ERP, but I'm not able to send the mail through ERP. What do I do? Who should I catch? The ERP chairman? If there is a problem, I will send a mail to the ERP chairman saying that your ERP was malfunctioning. I will do that. And that day I'm going to take attendance. and I'm going to maintain that attendance just to avoid that retest business. See, I was so liberal, I used to forget about attendance. I don't take attendance in each class. I will be hauled up. Why I don't take attendance? 60 of you are missing today, right? Only 40 students have turned up. There are 100 students in this class. 60 of you are bunking today. Have I said anything about it? I have said nothing about attendance. I have been conducting this class without taking attendance, which is not correct officially. Every class should be taken. I have to take attendance in every class. But if I do that, I will be wasting 15 minutes to take attendance. But what to do? You people play the fool. You put us in trouble. That is why, like monkeys, we call out the names of students and take attendance. Do we like that thing? But we do it. Because someday somebody will just write a funny mail saying that this guy was present but he was not there. Now how do I defend myself? You people should understand that faculty has to be fair to everyone. And there are some students who want to manipulate the system. I'm telling it very bluntly. It is happening. There are some students who are doing such all crooked things, and that is why this is a big problem. That is why I told that, okay, I will not conduct on 11th, I will conduct on Thursday. That is the reason. I am not being a monster or something that trying to trouble students or not like that. Because I also know that if I don't conduct within this week, I have to explain to the authorities why I did not do it. So you should also understand that I am operating by some rules. I don't operate without rules. I cannot violate rules. I have to do it on Thursday. I cannot take it on a Saturday or a Sunday. Whatever you are suggesting. Please be aware that we are also faculty bound by rules of the institute. Yeah, if you want to say something, you can say something. I will listen. I'm not a guy who will not listen to students. I will listen.
Sir,
Yeah.
sir, ERP is that update thing is starting from 10 a.m. Sir, not possible to take.
Arre Baba, you are thinking at 9:59 a.m. they will start doing things in ERP.
Sir, all are comfortable with Thursday in the time class.
Yeah. So shall I take it on Thursday?
Yes,
You
sir.
agree? Yeah. You are thinking. See, Avinash, you are thinking that at 9:59 they will shut down the server. They will start doing things. This is India, Baba. You people think that system is so fair, na? Let us do it on Thursday in the time frame that is allotted to me, 10 to 11. That is the thing that I should do. Correctly, that is the thing I should do. Okay? So if I start playing with it, then again I will be in trouble. And I cannot defend myself. Somebody will say, why did you hold it on Saturday? Who asked you to hold it on Saturday? There are so many funny stories that I can tell you. I spent 8,000 rupees of a flight ticket to come back to hold a lab on Saturday, extra lab on Saturday. I was hauled up by the HOD who asked me under what permission you held that extra lab on Saturday. For the benefit of the students, I came all the way running away from Delhi to hold the class on Saturday, and I was hauled up by the HOD. Lovely. This is how IIT operates, okay? So I have been on the wrong side of the law. So now I don't want to be like that. You can label me a crooked faculty, you can label me as anything, but I have experienced pain. So I don't want to do anything other than hold the test on Thursday. That is my opinion. And if you feel that I'm being a monster or whatever, I'm not giving you time, then I don't know what to say. I don't know what to say. I mean, I cannot hold it on 11. That is not permitted according to the calendar. I have to hold it in before 8. And I have the class on Thursday. That is the simple thing that I have to do. I don't know what to do.
Sir, Thursday is the best thing, so we are all okay with it.
Yeah, that's what it should be. I mean, I have to hold it on Thursday.
Yes.
Hello, excuse me, sir.
Yeah, tell me.
So there is a small suggestion that you are taking, we were submitting the previous class test in a Google Drive folder, which is
Yes.
actually accessible to everyone, and anybody can remove anybody else's paper as well.
So is it like that? I have to be careful.
So just one small suggestion that can you just circulate something like Google form where we can just upload our PDFs.
Google form. I have to think how to create that. Okay. I'll think about it, how to do that. Ajay, if I remove the sharing permission in the Google folder, then you cannot see it, huh?
Then we can't even upload it, sir.
Then
Yeah, after you upload, then I will remove the sharing for all the students.
Yeah,
Then
that can be, sir.
Then it will be fine.
Yes, sir.
And that's what I was thinking. Yeah, I generally trust students, so I don't do so much. Otherwise, I have to take the pain to sit and do that, isn't it? There are more important things to do. So I don't do these things. I generally trust the students. But again, last semester, there was a lab going on. And then there was a girl. I think she is here. Sohini, are you there? Sohini Roy. I remember she sent out a mail to me saying that somebody was removing her files. So this So I have been so simple, so liberal, trying to trust students and do things. But the system here is such that what can I do? We become like this. Okay. So we don't want to be like this, but we become like this. Anyway, so I'm ending the class today. So best of luck for the midterm exam. So I'll be ready on Thursday, 10 o'clock. This ERP business is not functioning. So I will again complain tomorrow. I will send out an official mail saying that I cannot send mails through ERP. So this I am going to write a mail tonight to the authorities. Okay. And if ERP doesn't function, then I'm going to send a mail just like I sent before today's class. I sent through my Gmail. You got the link, right? Before today's class? I sent the invite through Gmail only. So I will do it like that. Okay. So all of you should receive the Google Meeting link. That's what I will do. I'll copy all the email IDs from ERP and I will paste it in Gmail and send it. Okay. Thank you. Syllabus is only up to today. Whatever I have taught.
Thank you, sir.